Hey y'all. So 5 reasons why your 20s or the 20s are the best age period for Black women to get pregnant. The 20s. I'm Dr. Fatu Forna. I am an OBGYN who works to keep women safe in pregnancy here in the US and around the world. I want to talk about this important issue. It's undisputed. Really, the early 20s are the best biological age. I didn't say it might not be the best age where you got everything together, but biologically, it's the best age for most women, especially for Black women, to get pregnant and have babies. Why is that? We'll talk about those reasons, but, I acknowledge that in the 20s, we might not have it all together. We might not be done with school. We might not be financially ready. We might not have found the right partner. Those are all realities that need to be considered, but we still cannot dispute our biology, that biologically, physically, the 20s are the best time to consider pregnancy. Most women in the US are actually waiting later. Our times have changed. Our norms have changed. In 1970, for example, the average age to get pregnant in the US was 21. By 2020, that had gone up to 27. And now about 20% of women are pregnant when they're over the age of 35. So this affects a lot of women. We're postponing pregnancy for many reasons. But let's think of the 5 reasons why, or let's talk about the 5 reasons why the 20s is really the best, where if you can plan your life, and if you can influence it, try your best to have your babies in the 20s. Number one, fertility. The 20s are when you're most fertile. You have sex, boom, you're pregnant, just like that. Usually within 6 months to a year, you'll get pregnant. You wait till your 30s after you're done with your career and with marriage, or your 40s, a lot of women have difficult time getting pregnant. So if you're planning on delaying, you might need to start thinking of freezing your eggs by the time you're hitting 30s or so, because you might be unable to have babies when you're ready. Your eggs also, you're born with all of the eggs that you're ever going to have, and they get older with time. And so the longer you wait to your 30s and your 40s, you're more likely to have a chromosome problem and a baby that has a chromosome abnormality because there are problems with your eggs or with how the eggs and the sperm came together to form the baby. When you're about age 25, your risk of a chromosome problem like Down syndrome, for example, is 1 in 1,000. When you're age 35, it's 1 in 294. By the time you get to be age 40, it's 1 in 86. So much, much higher risk the older you get. Because of that, you're more likely to have miscarriages, issues like that. All right. So fertility changes. All right. Number 2. You're healthier when you're in your 20s. Your heart, your bones, in general, you're less likely to be obese or overweight, to have hypertension, diabetes, fibroids, all of those things that can affect a pregnancy and cause poor outcomes, including death. You're less likely to have those things in your 20s. You're physically fitter. Pregnancy is hard. I've had 4 babies. It's hard. It's hard. And the older you get, you feel it in your bones. It's hard. Your body is just it's tired. You need more time of work when you're pregnant. You're more likely to have complications in general. So when you're in your 20s, you avoid a lot of those things. And number 3, in your 20s, you have a lower risk that those things caused by weathering is going to affect you. I talked about weathering before, that condition of chronic stress that affects, cumulative stress that affects your health outcomes. It comes from living in a racist country like the USA. It affects your risk of hypertension, diabetes, obesity, all of those things. And that affects, your risk of having a premature baby. Going into labor early affects your risk of a maternal death and all of those things. So that's a good reason to have your baby in your 20s if you're able to make it happen. Number 4, in your 20s, you have a lower risk of maternal death. Once you get to be in the 40s, for example, your risk of maternal death is 15 times higher if you're a Black woman. So if you're able to arrange your life where you can have babies in your 20s, that's what you should choose to do, because you're more likely to have the preeclampsia and the high blood pressure issues in pregnancy, the hemorrhage, need for C-sections, all of those things that increase your risk of maternal death. And then finally, number 5, you do have a lower risk of child mortality when you have your baby in the 20s as opposed to older. When you have babies, when you're older, you're more likely to have premature labor, which can mean that the baby is more likely to die or have problems, or just in general, you're more likely to have the baby die in your belly. So many reasons why it's best to have babies earlier in your 20s. Now, again, understood that many of us are in school. We're trying to make it in our careers. We don't have any money. We don't believe it's the perfect time. We don't have the right partner yet. But ultimately, it comes down to, again, our societal norms have changed. Women are having babies later, but we need to take all of these issues, learn about them, and make that decision for ourselves. Look at our health and our biology. It really, when it comes to having babies, you want to make sure you're not having it too early, but you want to make sure you're not having them too late either. Let me talk to Black men, please, for a second. Black men or men who like Black women, our biological clock is a real thing. And especially for Black women, it is a bigger issue because our risks of death are so much higher. It is not a small thing for a Black woman to have a baby after age 35, definitely after age 40. Those risks are really high. So it's about life and death. You need to get it together. You don't need to be wasting our time because our wanting to get pregnant and have babies earlier is not just because. It is really... It's about our health. It's about us being alive for our loved ones and our families. So think about that, Black men and other men who like Black women. We need your support too. So ultimately, it comes down to an individual choice. Choose the best time for you to get pregnant, but take these things into consideration. And if you are able to arrange your life to the point where you can have babies in your 20s, that you're going to have better outcomes. If you do have to have babies in the late 30s and 40s, there are things you can do to prepare to decrease your risk. And I'm going to be talking about a lot of those things because we need you to survive and thrive, Black women.